Hey guys, Nathan Masters here with Brick System Brothers. I was in Walmart the other day and I like to browse through the Hot Wheels and see what they got. And they had a GT40 in the Gulf Livery, which is this distinctive orange and light blue color. I'm a fan of this car and this color scheme, so I picked it up. It was only $1. And that got me thinking, we have a GT40 in Lego, and that was available in this set, 75881, the 2016 Ford GT and 1966 Ford GT40. Now this is getting older. I guess this was released back in 2017 before our Speed Champions theme went to 8 wide, of course. But the GT40 in this set was in a different color scheme. It was the black and light gray color scheme. And I like this one. I actually was able to pick up just the GT40 from a yard sale, and that's really the only car I wanted out of the set, so I'm glad I got that. Side note, I'd love to see Lego do this car in 8 wide, but that's for a different video. So basically what I was thinking was, Studio has the capability to recolor your Lego brick, and then like any Lego model in any Lego piece in any Lego color, even if that doesn't technically exist. And then you can render those and get really nice looking images of what it would look like if we got the official Lego GT40 in the Gulf color scheme. So yeah, there's plenty of information out there about, you know, when these cars started looking like this back in the 60s. There's a couple different variations. It looks like most of them go all the way down on the bumper here, but I've also seen a couple that it was blue down on the front of the bumper. So I found a couple different images to reference here. But yeah, Wikipedia, GT40, this site, I'll put a link down below. Basically, I was thinking we have this light blue color is a really close match to our royal light blue, and then our orange would be pretty close. I think dark orange, you could even get closer if you wanted to recolor all of those pieces like that. So what did I do? Well, I went to good old Lego Digital Designer first, and the reason I even started here in the first place, I'll address the mess in a minute. I actually build a lot faster in Digital Designer than Studio at this point, because that's what I grew up on. I've been able to kind of pick up Studio now, and I've done tutorials for both platforms, but I still do prefer Digital Designer. I would say I'm very familiar with our palette layout and where all the pieces are, and that's something I'm still learning in Studio. So basically, all you have to do, pick any of these instructions links that you like. PDFs are available on the internet, plenty of different places. I started with the official Lego instructions for the Ford GT40, available from that set, and I got as far as I could in Digital Designer. Now, this car, you're probably thinking, does not look anything like the official model, and you would be right. There are several issues here, but basically what happens is Digital Designer is an older platform and it doesn't get updated. Now, people that run this on their own computers, there's capability to upload your own part files. So this 2x2 bow is a missing piece in the download from Lego.com, which is still available to download, it's just not supported. So you can technically go in and find these part files and upload them to the correct library and get all the pieces that you would like for Digital Designer. But it's a lot easier to just go to Studio. And so what I did is I built this model as far as I could in Digital Designer with just the base pieces. And I think I got most of it. There's obviously some big pieces that are missing that help shape the body. The correct windshield is not available here. But what I was able to do is build most of the car in this neutral gray, and then the pieces that need updated I did in red. And so then what you can do is, with our Bricklink Studio, you can actually import files. And let's see here, what did I name this one? 4GT is, you look for the Digital Designer file, open that up, and it loads it all in pretty easily. So now it's a pretty simple matter to go ahead and replace all of the pieces here that need updated. You just delete the old one, come over here, 2x2, select the color we want, light gray, and then we go to our part category. It's going to be curved brick slope, and there it is. Easy, right? Put it in place. So basically I did that for all the pieces that needed updating. New style rims, the new windshield, correct windshield. Even the Speed Champions wheels were not available in the Digital Designer database. So I had to do that all the way through. It took about an hour or so. I don't know. Wasn't too long. And I'm getting more familiar with where all the pieces are in Studio as well. So at some point, if I want to recolor an official Lego set and just start building it from scratch, I'd probably start in Studio. Because it isn't really difficult to go from Digital Designer to Studio. And for me right now, it's actually faster. But keeping everything in one application, that would probably streamline the process a little bit. So I know what you guys are thinking. Let's skip ahead and see what happened, right? I'm proud to present to you the Ford GT40 in Gulf color screen. So this is what I got, and it doesn't, the studio just build room doesn't do it justice, because once you actually get your lighting stuff set up and your profiles right, it does look a lot better after you've rendered it and that kind of thing. So here's a render that I think turned out pretty good. The orange, like I was saying, this is just our normal orange on here, so that could definitely be swapped down for a darker orange. I think the blue comes pretty close. Let's go back and see what we've got. That really light blue, royal light blue, is a really good match. I think this orange could go darker. The rims I actually spent a little bit of time trying to get right. I made the actual rim piece a flat silver, and then this inset piece is a copper color that is available. I think that's a pretty good match for that. But yeah, this front end I ended up using, I just did this in this light blue color. There were a couple reference pictures that had it in this light blue, so I felt justified with that. And yeah, a couple different angles. Okay, so we want to present this digital model in some kind of background setting that makes it look really good. And so the first thing you want to do is think about what kind of background do you want to place this in. You could look for road pictures, you could look for like a busy street or a racetrack. I decided I want to put this in kind of a warehouse with some overhead lighting. Maybe it looked like it could have been parked there a couple years ago or a couple days ago, not really sure, a little bit of intrigue there. So what I like to do is go and look for I'll just search warehouse background, look at images here, and yeah, right off the bat there's a couple of good ones that could be used. The thing that you want to look for is high resolution and lighting. So something with a pretty good resolution that you'd be able to put as the background on your desktop if you want. At least 1080 pixels, something in there. So here's the one I ended up using. It's like almost like a hanger. So we have a really clear lighting direction up from the top, and we can actually see that the direct sunlight is going over to this side on the floor. So if I want to put my car model in over here, I don't have to worry about creating the actual reflections. I just have to worry about where the light is actually coming from. The other thing I like about this one is the floor has some directional lines on it that could help us place our model and line it up in the correct perspective. And so anytime that you want to get perspective right, these little lines are going to be able to help a lot. The other thing to keep in mind with your perspective is keeping that sizing. So you don't want your car to be really huge in here. You want this to maybe almost feel like an empty warehouse except for the car, and that actually draws the attention to the model. So I just saved this to my computer, and let me get that pulled up here real quick. Okay, so here is our warehouse background image, and I've opened this up in Paint 3D. This is available as a default app on Windows devices, and I've gotten pretty familiar with the interface. If any of you guys remember Paint, it's basically like the next generation of the Paint application. And it has a lot of capabilities. It's no Photoshop, but I like to call it the cheap man Photoshop. So if you're cheap like me, you don't want to pay for stuff, you find the free alternatives, and Paint 3D is the very free basic alternative to Photoshop, and it works pretty good for what I want to do with stuff. So I've brought this image into Paint 3D. We can actually see our image size is 1920 by 1080, so it's a nice large HD resolution backdrop here. And once we have the actual image that we want to use, we want to look at where the model is going to be placed. So I'm thinking somewhere over here in this corner, there's going to be a slight lean to the right. So we want to look at that side of the car, but just a little bit. So it's not going to be quite dead on. It's going to be off to the right a little bit. And then what we can do is we go back to our studio model, we do our render, and we can position our car like we want it to look. The left click will drag the whole model over, and the right click and hold down will actually turn it around in your workspace here. So it's not level with the eye space, but it's not really high either. Somewhere in between, something like that. And it's going to be over here quite a ways down in the corner. Now if we actually match our resolution in our rendering profile here, we can go 1920 1080. So now the size of this render is an exact match for the size of our background image. And what that means is we don't really have to mess around with the scaling later down the road. We can just place the car where we think it's going to look good in this image, render it with a transparent background, and then load that directly into Paint 3D. So somewhere down in here, with a little bit of an angle on the side and down, looking down on the top. And just go back and forth between studio and your background image and really kind of visualize the car down in this corner or wherever you want to put it, and try to get that lined up really good, because the closer you have that, the more realistic this is going to look. Okay, so that's step one. Step two is just as important because it's your lighting step, and lighting is what makes or breaks a picture like this. So to match up the lighting, again, we want to go back and look, where is the light coming from and where is our model going to be. So the light is coming from directly above. If our model was down on the center of the floor, we'd want the lighting to be coming from directly above. But our models, I want my model to be over here on the right. And so I'm going to treat the light like it's coming in from this corner of the image, because by the time you get down to this corner of the warehouse, it is more or less coming down from that corner. So what we have to do is we go to the lighting. First of all, I'm going to make this point of view ray with a transparent background. And now we have a lot of lighting position options. And that's what this switch to point of view ray did, is it gave me all these other options. And so there's a really helpful visualizer here. As you scroll through, it actually is putting this bulb in the corners where your main light and your optional sublight is going to be coming from. So I want to find something that puts the main light up here in this corner, or perhaps directly in the center. That would be a pretty good match. So we could do front, back looks like it's going to be pretty close. What about left, back? Left back looks like it's going to be a pretty good match for what we want to do with our render. So double check everything. We have our light up here in the corner, our car over here on the right with a slight angle on there. Once we upload that and map it onto our image, and remember this is going to work because we have our background as a transparent, so that's going to render everything other than the car is just going to be a clear layer that you see through when you bring it into Paint 3D, bring it into your workspace. You'll just be able to move the car around. So go ahead and render this. I've already done this, so it's saved on my computer already. Let's go ahead and jump straight to that. Okay, so now I've got this image loaded in. As you can see, it's not an exact match. When I rendered this, I actually made it bigger than I needed to the first time. But that's not a big deal because I can actually scale this and move it around however I want. And as you can already see, our lighting over here in the corner is going to be a pretty good representation. As far as size goes, it's just kind of something you feel out and you get a feel for as you go along. So let's really focus on our placement here. we want the angle between these wheels to line up really close on the floor. So this board isn't quite there, this board isn't quite there. Somewhere in between these two boards is going to be a good match for our angle viewing. We zoom back out all the way to kind of get a big picture look. I think it needs to be a little smaller yet. Something like that. And now it's starting to look like the Lego car model in the real life garage. Once you have that lighting lined up pretty good, this starts to do a really good job. Okay, so just placing the image in the other image, that's a good start. But to really make this shine, we're going to have to do a little more work, and that will involve doing some shading underneath the vehicle here. So from here on out is pretty specific to Paint 3D. If you have a different application that you like to use for image editing, you'll probably know your way around that one better than I do. But if you do want to give Paint 3D a try, I'll show you guys how I do it. I really like the spray can tool because it's a nice gradual touch. You can adjust the thickness here. Probably want to start really small, and you can also adjust the opacity, so we want to start that really low as well. So if you think about shadows, in this situation we're out of the direct sunlight, so the shadows are going to be really almost kind of fuzzy. It's not going to be a stark line on the ground. It's going to be more of just kind of a blob shape. So let's start with something a little lighter, not quite all the way black, but dark enough to give the idea of some shading here. And again, we want to look at where's the light coming from. It's kind of bouncing around the room here, but for the most part it's coming in from this left side and going this way. So we definitely want the area underneath the car, underneath the front, we want that to be darkened up quite a bit. Let's get all the way out to the edge of the tire over here, and then we can start to bring that out into the foreground a little more. Now just to speed up the process, we know down here, back really close to the center of underneath the vehicle, that's going to be the darkest. So I'm just going to go ahead and make that all the way dark right off the bat. And this is where it's going to take a little bit of a time investment, just kind of experience with understanding how lighting works and shadows. It's okay to have something that doesn't look great on your first try. It's all about practicing and getting an understanding of what how light behaves in different situations. Because when you want to make something look realistic, that's where you have to start, is with the lighting, in my opinion. So some of this I'm actually going to darken up is on the vehicle, and that's just because we're already in kind of a dim situation with our warehouse. Alright, so that's a good enough start with the marker. Let's go back to the spray can. I'm going to use the brown again to kind of get around outside the border. Let's make this a little bit more opaque. Bring that around the back of the wheel. Really bring that in. Out around the front. Let's go to our black now. Start to blend this, and it's going to look a lot better. Bring it up under the bumper here. Spray can is your friend. Alright, that's plenty opaque. Let's lighten that up. Even more gradual. So there's like, what, 3-4 minutes with the spray can, and it already makes a huge difference in terms of this looking like it's actually in the building. So I spent another 10 minutes or so on my first one. I did the front area, around the side, around the corner, and then the area in between the wheelbase here. I did a little work on that as well. So here's the final result. I've put it on my Flickr, and I think it turned out really good for a first run. You can kind of tell now that you know where to look, where the edits were made down under the front of the vehicle there. And I think I could have brought it around a little bit more around this side, all said and done. But Lego car in a just kind of a warehouse, empty warehouse background picture looks pretty good. And I'm using this as my background now, so I really like how it turned out. I think if I were to change anything, I would make this darker orange. I might bring this piece on the front around here. I'd bring that into the orange and let that play. And even starting to look at adding the number stickers on there as well. There's a way to do that in Studio. I'm not familiar with it, but I don't think it would be that hard. So yeah, just a little tutorial for you guys. Kind of a little bit different from our usual content, but it is related to Lego, and it's something that I like to do. Is bring the presentation side into the models and start looking at that and bring that to the table. This is on my Flickr. You guys are welcome to check it out. It's just Nathan Masters, and I put my other render on here as well. Talked about that a little bit. Thanks for watching, guys. Brick System Brothers. We do Lego content. Pretty much if it's related to Lego, it's fair game for the channel. I've just recently done a alternate build of our hidden side bus. I'm pretty proud of that one, so give that a look if you haven't already. And that should be coming soon as instructions for purchase on Rebrickable. So if you want to help support us, that'd be a great way to do it. A couple of dollars for the instructions there. At some point I might do another video on that and just talk about how the process behind building those alternate models, and it goes back to practice. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you around.